Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back on another episode of Commander Cheapskate Gamer Reviews, and this is the series where we dedicate and review various products related to the miniatures wargaming hobby. And today we're continuing our analysis and review of the Warhammer Armies Project 9th edition Warhammer Fantasy battle rules that Mathias Eliasson has written on his Warhammer Armies Projects blog. So slowly we've been going through the rule sets for the 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy that the Mathias Eliasson has written. We also take a look at several of his army books so far. So today we're going to continue on with that review by taking a look at his 9th edition rules for Warhammer the Empire Army book. So this PDF, of course, is available to download absolutely free from the Warhammer Armies Project blog, and we're going to take a look at this book in its entirety. We're going to take a look at the army rules for all the individual units. We'll also be taking a look at the rules for the special characters, as well as for magic, as well as magic items, and then lastly we'll go over the army lists. Now this review is going to be a little bit more in depth than our usual reviews that we do for this channel. So because of that, I will be putting timestamps down below in the description box that you can click to and go to the various sections of the book, and you can take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this review on a roll. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to talk about real quick are the army rules for this product. So we're going to scroll down real quick to the table of contents. And like I said before, this is a beautifully written rule set that Mathias Eliasson has done for his 9th edition army booklets. As you can see, it looks like an actual, looks like very professionally done. In fact, if you didn't know any better, you could have sworn that these were actually official Games Workshop products. I mean, that's how much of a good job he did with his desktop publishing and graphics design. So let's go ahead and talk about the Soldiers of the Empire real quick. So let's go ahead and zoom in for these guys. Now for their special rules for their army, for the detachment system, it's relatively stayed the same. They just call it state troops, what they call it now. So it's exactly the same kind of rule set as you guys are used to seeing before. So you can see there, no changes there for the most part. Same thing with their experimental weapons for the most part. For the guns that they have, they relatively stay the same, so not much change is taking place there. So same thing with their generals. Generals still have the hold the line special rule as well, still mediocre combat stats, and that's because of course they're Empire characters. Captains of the Empire have done exactly the same thing. Same thing with Battle Wizards, they have remained relatively the same as well. Warrior Priests, still pretty much the same. Same thing with Arch Electors. For a majority of these units, they've pretty much stayed the same for the most part for what we're used to actually seeing. Same thing with the War Altar of Sigmar. That one has also remained the same for the most part too, so it's kind of nice to see that they're actually continuing on with some of those things as well. Witch Hunters, Master Engineers, State Troops. Now, this one has a little bit of a difference on it. Let's go and talk about that real quick. So when we're talking about our state troops, like we said before, most of the rules are exactly still the same, so not much changes there. Swordsmen still have a weapon skill of 4. The major difference though are archers. Archers no longer have skirmish as a given. What they have to do now is they actually have to pay for that ability to be able to skirmish that way. So if you're an Empire player who likes using skirmishing archers, there's a little bit of a penalty on that when it comes to their point value. And the reason why I bring that up is because one of my buddies, King Khalifa, he actually plays our studio's Empire army, and he uses those skirmishers quite a bit. So that's one of the things that we actually kind of noticed with those changes as well. Free Company Militia, still a very dirt cheap unit as well, and they still have their rules being relatively the same as well. Same thing with Huntsmen, they still have their scouts and skirmishing abilities as well, and their 4 ballistic skills, so that has not changed at all as well. Great Swords, still stubborn, so excellent job there, not much changes there. Flagellants, however, I think they nerfed them a little bit. I'm not exactly sure if that was the case, but I believe they were supposed to be a weapon skill 3 originally. I think is what they were. Looks like you kind of dropped them down to weapon skill 2. I may not be 100% on that, but I think that's what ended up happening. I think they dropped their weapon skill a little bit on that one. Now, we do have a brand new unit now that's to this army booklet. And this brand new unit now is the Sisters of Sigmar. We could actually see this from Mordheim, is where actually we saw this unit as well. So let me go and zoom in a little bit for you guys to see this one. So as you can see here, we have our Sisters of Sigmar. Their champions are called Sister Superiors. Weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength and toughness of 3 as well, initiative 3, 1 attack and 2 attack. So they're relatively the same as they've always been to normal troops. The difference though is that they have the hatred rule, as they also have the immunity to fear, which is very important because now the fear rules have changed significantly with this edition of Warhammer. Instead, it actually adds bonuses and negatives to your combat resolution, so this is actually quite an important unit to have, especially if you're going to deal with enemies that cause fear. for the most part. Now we'll talk about their equipment lists a little bit more in depth when we get to the army list portions of this review. So continuing on, we have knightly orders now. As you can see, we have our knightly order units, and we also have their inner circle counterparts as well. Not much has changed for their rules, but in the army list though, there has been some significant changes there. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit about that more in depth when we actually get to the army lists, and we'll talk about point values and the things that you can equip your knights with. Now continuing on, of course, we have Grandmasters. They're still in the army as well. These are the most kitted out combat lords you can possibly have for an Empire army as well. And like I said before, for the most part though, they have not really changed so much in their rules, but in the equipment that they can use though, there has been some significant changes there. And we'll talk about that once again when we get to the army lists. Demogryph Knights, still the same, monstrous cavalry as well, excellent stats, as you can see right there. Now they did take away their armor piercing rules, as you can see here though. So that part's kind of sad. They took away that rule from them. So they did get nerfed a little bit. Actually, I'm not gonna lie, they actually got nerfed quite a bit in this document, both in the things that you could equip them with some of the rules that they had for like their armor piercing attacks, and same thing with their army composition for the army lists. But we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the army list portion of this book. So continue on, we have our Reiksguard Knights. These guys relatively stay the same, so not much change has happened. However, now we have a brand new unit called Reiksguard Foot Knights. Now this unit's actually kind of interesting because you actually have these guys back in the 4th and 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So it's kind of neat seeing these guys coming back again. Kind of like, again, a lot of the rules and army lists that Mathias Eliasson has brought together. He's actually taken a lot of throwback units from older editions of Warhammer and actually brought them into the 9th edition. So it's kind of nice to see that. So once again, we see our Reiksguard Foot Knights. They're back. They also still have their stubborn special rule, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you can kit them out with their army list rules here in a little bit. We once again still have Pistoliers. They're still relatively the same. Same thing with Outriders. They're also relatively the same as well. So not much change is taking place with those units. We do have a brand new unit being introduced now in this one called Imperial Dwarves. And so in the older editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, you could actually take dwarves in your Empire armies. So that was one of the reasons why the Empire has such good weaponry, as well as armor and advanced weaponry, like cannons and things, is because dwarves are usually found within the Imperial cities to help build these things. So now you could actually bring these guys into your units as well. Good stats: 4 weapon skill, 3 strength, toughness 4, 2 initiative. So just your typical dwarf, stats for there. Also, this also kind of gives you a little bit of a preview of the changes that Mathias Eliasson has made towards the dwarves army book as well. So Ancestral Good still sticks. They still hate orcs and goblins, Skaven and hobgoblins as well. They have now the Relentless rule, which is the units entirely comprised of models with this special rule do not need to pass leadership test in order to march, regardless of the proximity of enemy units, so that stay the same. However, if you notice, the Resolute rule has changed quite a bit. It says models with this special rule roll 3d6 for any break test taken in the first round of combat and discard the highest die. So their Resolute chain rule has changed significantly for this unit, which is appropriate because, they're dwarves. But at the same time, though, there are some changes coming with the dwarves, and we'll talk about that when we get to their army book. Another brand new unit that we also have also included in this one is Halflings. So Halflings are back again. I think the last time we saw Halflings in Warhammer was during the 4th and 5th editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and now they're also back in this 9th edition as well. These guys are your premier skirmishing units. So for example, they have ballistic skill 4, weapon skill 2, 2 strength and 3 toughness, 5 initiative. They basically have what's called short and nimble special rule, which means enemies attacking models with this rule suffering -1 to hit in close combat. So these guys have always been really your premier harassers in your Empire army. In the past, you'd use them as skirmishing units to go up ahead and pick off enemies with some long range, with some shooting with their short bows. And also they added this rule to it so that was a little bit more survival in close combat. And we also have the addition of Imperial Ogres. So Imperial Ogre mercenaries are back in the Empire army lists. Like I said, in the 4th and 5th editions of Warhammer Fantasy, you could include different troop types like this, and so Imperial Ogres was usually a huge unit that people used to include in their armies back in the day. So as you can see here, we do have our movement 6, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 2, 4 strength and toughness, 3 wounds, 2 initiative, 3 attacks apiece, 4 for their leader. There's still the monstrous infantry rule as well. Now, as you can see here, this also kind of gives you a little bit of a preview about the changes that they made for Ogres with the 9th edition as well. Ogre Charge only causes 1 impact hit as well. It says models of special are part of a unit with ranks. Add their current rank bonuses to the strength of the impact hits they inflict. No longer do they get D3 impact hits for rolling 10 or higher. So that rule has been nerfed a little bit for the Ogre Charge. But like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we actually talk about the Ogre Kingdom's army book. And same thing with their Ogre pistols. Ogre pistols now follow the rules for normal pistols, but they have a range of 24 inches. That part has stayed the same from the previous edition. Great cannons, still exactly the same. Same thing with mortars. Mortars are exactly the same thing now as well, so those rules haven't changed too much. We also got Hellblaster volley guns. They've relatively stayed the same as well. Same thing with Hellstorm rocket batteries. So those have also stayed the same too. Now we have a brand new addition to this book with the War Wagon. So the War Wagon was a war machine from the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And as you can see, it is back. It's got a strength of 5, toughness 5, 5 wounds. They're pulled by 2 war horses, armor save of 3 up for the chariot. It's also a large target. And as you can see, it says they have mixed weaponry rule. As says each crew of a war wagon are armed with their own experimental weapons. Unlike other units, each crew model may choose to allocate their missile attack at a different target if they wish. The crew may also ignore move or fire special rule of any weapon they carry. In addition, the repeater handgun and Hockland rifle. The crew of the war wagon also armed with the following weapons. They have what is called a blunderbuss, as you can see in this one. It's got range of 12, 4 inches, armor piercing, multiple shots, D3, and quick to fire. It says the blunderbuss does not suffer any penalties to hit for firing multiple shots or for firing at a charging enemy. We also have our man catcher. A model of the man catcher has the killing blow special rules, so that's back again. We have our hook halberd, which is against cavalry and monstrous cavalry. Attacks with this hook halberd gains +1 to hit, and then we have the ball and chain. It's a flail, and each successful hit with a ball and chain is multiplied into D3 hits. So once again, we have our little crazy experimental tower of engineers students armed with their esoteric weapons, which is kind of cool as well. And of course, we have the steam tank, and the steam tank, of course, has relatively remained the same. So that part hasn't had any major changes either. And of course, we got our Luminarch of Hysh. The Luminarch, of course, has still got its rules associated with it. Same thing with the Celestial Huracanum. Those rules are relatively stay the same for those 2 units as well. And of course, we have our monstrous choices. We have our Imperial Pegasi, we have our War Horses, we have our Imperial Griffins as well. And so those have relatively stayed the same. Except I think, yeah, as you can see here, yeah, our Shrike Talons, Razor Beaks, 2 Heads, and Blood Roar. Those are still part of the upgrades you can get for your Griffins as well. So not much change has happened there. So from there, with the army list now fully completed, the next thing we're talking about real quick are the special characters. Alright, so let's go on and talk about the special characters in this 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So first of all, we have Karl Franz. Of course, he's the Emperor of the Empire as well. So his rules have relatively remained the same, so he's actually doing pretty good there. So not much change has happened there for the most part. I believe the biggest significant change for this character, though, is that you could also choose to have him be mounted on a warhorse. Once again, he can still ride Deathclaw, his Griffin. That has still remained the same. Or you could actually put him on foot, if I remember correctly, on the army list choices. So you have actually several choices you can choose from. So you could actually have all of his benefits without having to worry about monsters. So that's actually kind of cool as well. And of course, we have Kurt Helborg, Reich Marshal of the Empire. He's relatively stayed the same as well, so not much change taking place for the most part for this character. Same thing with Ludwig Schwarzhelm, the Battle Standard Bearer special character. He's remained the same as well. Volkmar the Grim, he's also still the same with his different rules and his abilities as well. Same thing with Balthazar Gelt, the Supreme Patriarch. He's the Lore of Metal guy who's been really awesome as well in the previous editions. He's relatively remained the same as well, so not much change is really taking place with that character too much either. Now, we do, however, have some additional new lords that have been added into it, and these lords are from the 4th edition and 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So one of the characters we have now is Thyrus Gorman, the High Wizard of the Bright Order. So this was the original Patriarch character from those older editions of Warhammer, and this guy was Lore of Fire as well. So as you can see here, he's got pretty respectable stats, which you would see for a Wizard Lord. So that part's kind of cool. He's a level 4 wizard, uses the Lore of Fire. That's his spell group that he has as well. He's also got Lore Master, Lore of Fire, so he knows all the spells as well. So, some of the special rules he has are Fire Lord. Thyrus may add +1 to the result of each of his dice rolled when determining the number of hits caused by a spell. So that means each of his dice, which means that every single die gets a +1 to it. So very powerful caster offensive capabilities, especially when it comes to his magic. Now for his magic items, he has the Bright Sword. This magic sword gives Thyrus a +1 when rolling to wound, as well as flaming attacks. He's got the Firebrand Staff, which means that Thyrus may add +12 to the range of his spells. We have the Firestone of Agni, Once per turn, Thyros may add +2 power dice to casting one of his spells, as well as the Blazing Ruby. The Blazing Ruby confers a ward save of 5 up and the immunity of flaming attack special rule. So if you're looking for a really good offensive weaponry in terms of your magical game, Thyros is your guy. So it's kind of cool that they brought this character back too. Same thing with Boris Todbringer, the Elector Count of Middenheim. So they brought him back as well. Weapon skill 6, strength 4, toughness 4, 3 wounds, 4 attack, 6 initiative, 9 leadership. He's got his Hatred of Beastmen special rule. He's also got the Hold of the Line special rule. He also has what's called the Crush the Weak special rule attached to him. Boris Todbringer has the Hatred special rule against enemies with leadership characteristics of 6 or lower. So this guy is really good for taking on like Horde type armies. For his magic items, he's got Leg Biter, the Middenheim Rune Fang. So once again, it's a Rune Fang weapon, or knows all armor saves. So these are the Elector Count special characters. He also has the Talisman of Ulrich. At the start of every player turn, unless he has been removed as a casualty, Boris Todbringer instantly recovers any lost wounds up to his starting value of 3. In addition, it gives Boris Todbringer magic resistance 1 and immunity psychology. So very cool kitted out combat character there. Marius Leittorf, the Elector Count of Averland, he's still relatively the same from what he was in this previous edition, so we're not going to really spend too much time on him. Then we have Aldebrand Ludenhoff, the Elector Count of Hochland, so they brought this character back from 4th edition as well. So this guy was more of like your shooting characters when he ended up happening. So as you can see here, he's got his 5-up ballista skill in this one, so it's actually kind of cool. He's got his Aldebrand's Hawk. The Hawk may target models. Using the Sniper special rule, the target must pass a weapon skill test or suffer a streak 3 hit. So of course, and once again, he's got his Hochland Rune Fang as well that he can use. Then we have Valmir von Rakov, the Elector Count of Ostland. So they brought back that combat character as well. As you can see, weapon skill 6, 5 ballistic skill, 4 toughness, as well as strength, 3 wounds, 6 initiative, 4 attacks. As you can see, he's got his Brain Wounder, which is his Rune Fang, so that weapon's still there. And he's also got the Dragon Bow, which is his shooting check. And it says the Dragon Bow has the following profile: 36-inch range, strength 5, multiple shots 3, volley fire. So because of that, he still has that rule. So that character is back. So that's actually kind of interesting. They brought him back too. Then of course you have Magnus the Pious. Of course, his rules have remained the same as well. Same thing with Marcus Wolfhart, the sniper character that goes after monsters. He's remained the same as well. Luther Huss is also relatively stayed the same as well, so not much change from him. And they brought back Vultan, the character from the older edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. This guy was like the chosen of Sigmar, as basically what he is. So they brought him back as well, as you can see there. He's got movement 4, weapon skill 6, ballista skill 5, 4 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 5 attacks, 5 initiative, 4 attacks, leadership 9. So you can see he's a special character, and they basically brought back the Vultine version back when he was just a humble blacksmith, is what they basically brought back. So you have the rule against the odds. Enemy units can never gain the combat resolution bonus points for attacking the flank or rear in a combat involving Vultine. In addition, Vultine, any unit he leads has immunity to psychology and are stubborn. You have his awesome presence roll. It says wounds inflicted by Vultan in close combat are counted towards the Empire combat resolution score of any combat within 12 inches of him, not just the one he is taking part in. Vultan may never be the army's general. And that's because he's not really a soldier. He's just a humble dude who can just step up and just, cave your head in with some hammers when the time comes. And then of course we have Iron Resolve. Vultan has a ward save of 5 up. If Vultan is killed, take a leadership test for him at the end of that phase. If he passes, his astounding strength of will allows him to ignore the wound and continue fighting. He remains alive on 1 wound, and the wounds that he killed him are discounted. The effects of combat resolution are worked out after determining whether Vultine recovers. This rule does not apply if he is fleeing and is run down by charges or pursuers, or slain by killing blow. So once again, this guy is kind of back, which is kind of cool. So with the special characters over with, next thing we're going to talk about real quick are magic items as well as spell lores. Alright, so now we're going to talk about magic as well as magic items. Now as for magic, obviously they have access to all 8 spell lores. I'm not going to really go into too much in depth about that just because you can take a look at those rules yourself. However, there has been some major changes with the heirlooms of magic with their magical items, so let's go ahead and talk about that. So, as you can see here, first of all we have magic items for Rune Fangs. Rune Fangs can only be taken now by generals of the Empire only. So if you're one of those kind of guys who like using Grandmasters for your army generals and you wanted to give them a Rune Fang to fight, that is no longer the case anymore. Only generals may take that, so it's been restricted to a very specific character type, which to me is an obvious nerf. I don't like it when people do that with nerfing on things, and unfortunately this army book, especially when we get to the army list portion, has been nerfed quite significantly in some of its units. Now, of course, with the armor of meteoric iron, that's relatively stayed the same. Same thing with the helm of the Skaven Slayer. The Mace of Hellstrom has actually changed just a little bit. Instead of attacking normally, the bearer can choose to make his strength 10 attack, multiple D3 wounds, so it's changed slightly with a little bit with that one. And same thing with, we have this new item now called the Shroud of Magnus. It is a talisman of 60 points. It says this item receives, the bearer receives a ward up saves of 5 and a magic resistance 2. In addition, any unit joined by the character wearing the shroud has immunity to fear as well as terror. So that's actually kind of cool. However, if you notice the white cloak of Ulrich though, that is gone. So that's an example of some nerfing that's taking place here. So that magic item is no longer available for your units anymore. Van Horstman's Speculum has relatively stayed the same, so not much change there. We have a new item now called Aldred's Casket of Sorcery. It's a 35-point magic item. It gives you a bound power spell. It says at the start of each your magic phase, the bearer may remove and capture one randomly determined spell from an enemy wizard, 12 inches of him on a roll of 4 up. The bearer can then cast the capture spell as his own magic phases by releasing it in the form of the casket, just like from a bound spell, or upon the spell is then removed from the game. Any number of spells may be captured by the casket, and the bearer can cast each one once in either several magic phases or all at the same time if they prefer. The magic level of the spell cast by the casket will be equivalent to the normal casting value of the spell. So very powerful anti-magic ability, which is actually kind of cool, so I think that's kind of neat. And of course, with the Ring of Volans for 20 points, I believe that one was in the original book too, so this one's only one use only though, so that part's kind of sad. We do have a brand new standard called the Imperial Banner, which is 85 points. It says all units within 12 inches of this banner roll 3d6 for their leadership test and discard the highest results, which is actually kind of cool. And of course, with the Griffin Standard, which has stayed the same. Now, the Steel Standard, however, is gone, so that's no longer an option for you guys anymore. So for those of you guys like using Knights, having the Steel Banner has been taken away, which is a severe nerf against your Knight units, in my opinion. So like I said, this book does have some significant nerfing done on the Empire units, which is kind of a shame because I personally hate when they nerf things, but that's just my personal preference on things. But with that being said, we're going to go to the army list next. That's the next section we're going to talk about, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. Alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about real quick are the army lists real fast for the 9th edition rules for the Empire. So first of all, when it comes to the point values real quick, as you can see for Karl Franz, he actually starts off on foot actually as his basic action for the most part. He doesn't really get any equipment beyond that. So like for example, if he wants to take a Warhorse or Imperial Pegasus or Deathclaw, those cost points, as well as his the Warhammer Galmaraz. That actually does not come standard for him. He may swap out his Rune Fang for that, and that costs 30 points in order to do that as well. So that part's kind of interesting. Now for the rest of the characters, they've relatively made the same. Relatively made the same in terms of the things that they can and can't take. So we're not going to go too much in depth with that real quick. So we're just going to move on past some of these guys as well. Oh, actually, no, we won't do that. We'll talk about their points real quick. So like, for example, Thyras Gorman, he's 365 points. Boris Todbringen, Marius Leitdorf, Aldebrand Ludenhoff, as well as Valmir von Rakov. As you can see, they all have different points attached to them as well. For 270 points for Boris, Marius is 220, Aldebrand Ludenhoff is 205, Valmir von Rakov is 225 points as well, which is actually pretty steep for these Lord choices, especially since you can only use 35% of your characters as Lords, so it'll be kind of interesting to see if anybody actually, uses these units too much. And of course, you have our General of the Empire. As you can see, they have their various things that they can be kitted out with. Same thing with your Wizard Lords. Now your Grandmasters. Now we do have a change for your Grandmasters now. So let's go ahead and talk about this. It says, you must include at least one unit of knightly orders if you want to include a Grandmaster, which kind of makes sense in the most part. They can take lances, great weapons, or shields, or they may ride a Demigryph now. So that rule has been changed. A lot of people have always wondered, how can a Grandmaster not be able to ride a Demigryph? Because, they could be Grandmasters of those knightly orders, so now you can do that now if you want to, so that part's kind of cool. However, you may not equip them with the Rune Fang, so, there's also that as well. Then, of course, you have your Arch-Electors as well as your heroes now. So we have Ludwig von Schwarzhelm, he's 170 points for him. Marcus Wolfhart, 100 points for him. Luther Huss, and then Valtine is actually worth 260 points just by himself, so there's that to consider as well. We also have our Captain of the Empire. They have relatively remained the same. Same thing with our Battle Wizards. No major changes there. Same thing with our Warrior Priests, Master Engineers, as well as Witch Hunters. So all those have relatively stayed the same for the most part. So that part's kind of nice. So let's talk about our core units real quick. So for our Halberdiers, one thing nice about our Halberdiers now is that they can now be equipped with medium armor, which gives them a 5-up armor save, which is really cool. If you give them shields, it gives them a 4-up armor save, which is really kind of cool at that point. So if you like using Halberdiers, you can make them survive a little bit better by getting them some more additional points there. Now for the rest, for Spearmen, they've stayed the same. They can change out their spears for pikes now, so that's a new weapon choice they can choose. So if you want them to have that, that's also an option. They can also wear light armor as well for 1 point. Same thing with our swordsmen. They've remained the same for the most part. Same thing with can gunners. Pretty much the same. Crossbowmen have stayed the same. However, archers, though, like I said before, their skirmishing is no longer free for them. You actually have to pay for that, and it's a point for that. So not much difference there. Now for your free company guys, are no longer have the skirmishing rule anymore. They've taken that away. However, they have given you the option to make them ambushers if you want to. So if you want to ambush your opponent, you can do that really quick with some free company mercenaries. So that's always an option as well for you as well if you want to go with that route. Now for your coordinate units, so this is where we start seeing some of the nerf bat coming in real quick. So first of all, for our knightly orders, first thing they did to them, of course, is that if you'll notice, the armor saving is actually good, so it's kind of nice. And they have full plate armor now, and they basically gives them like a 1-up armor save, especially give them shields and bartered war horses. So that part is cool. What is not so cool though is you notice they can no longer take great weapons anymore. They can only be equipped with lances, so that tar pitting unit that people like to use with your great weapon wielding knights, no longer an option anymore. So you can't use great weapons for your knights anymore. Also, if you want to upgrade them to inner circles now, they're no longer allowed to be core choices anymore. They have to be special choices now. So like I said, obvious unit change to kind of nerf it a little bit to see if you want to take those guys. So, you know, let's win some, lose some on this part as well. Same thing with the Magic Banner. They can take one for 25 points, which is great, but they can take a 50-point one if they're the Inner Circle Knights. But without the Steel Standard, though, that also kind of took that away too. So they kind of nerfed knightly orders, in my opinion, which is actually kind of sad to see. However, though, they did make Pistoliers, though, to a core choice. So that part is really cool. I think that's kind of neat that they actually did that. So if you never really used Pistoliers before, now you can really do so because now it counts as a core choice, which is actually kind of cool. So moving on to our special units now, so Great Swords. Great Swords no longer come with full plate armor or heavy armor anymore. They automatically get equipped with light armor. So they did get nerfed a little bit because now you can only give them heavy armor or medium armor, so you have to pay for that. So that part's there, so that's one thing. Of course, you have our Reiksguard Knights. Those guys really stay the same. So our Reiksguard Foot Knights, they have full plate armor as well as shield, and they also can carry great weapons, what they can carry for their upgrade for them, and they cost 13 points per model for those guys. So kind of a tactical choice, makes you kind of, you know, if you want to use that, it's up to you. Now continue on, our Flagellants, they're still equipped with flails. They could even swap them for two-hand weapons, so that part's kind of nice. And with that new unit with the Imperial Dwarves, they have 7 points per unit, per miniature. Full command upgrades available. They can be equipped with halberds, spears, great weapons, crossbows, or handguns, and they may take shields for 1 point, but they only get light armor as base. They can't equip heavy armor or medium armor. They're just light armor wielding guys. Our Halflings are worth 3 points apiece as well. They can get full command for them. They can be equipped with short bows or spears, and they may take shields as well. And at the same time, our Imperial Ogres are 28 points per miniature for those guys. They have options to take full command as well. They have great weapons, ogre pistols, or abrasive ogre pistols. That's something they can take, and the entire unit may wear light armor for 3 points per miniature for that. So continuing on their special units, we do have our Sisters Sigmar. They're worth 4 points apiece. They can take a Sister Superior, that's it, no standard bearer, no musician. They may take bucklers, light armors, and they may be upgraded to skirmishers. So you might be wondering, well, Commander Cheapskate, why would you take this unit if that's the case? The reason why is because of that 4 points per model. Those are actually really nice. You could actually use them as, like, you know, immunity to fear, hatred causing flak if you really wanted to. Use them as chaff and just have them chaff it up and just kind of like fight units that way. So that's actually kind of a neat little addition there. They can actually march block immunity fear causing units, so that'd be kind of cool if they could do that. Outriders, they stay the same as well. Great cannons and motors are still in the special choices as well, so kudos there. They do have the option to upgrade with an additional crew member, so they can actually be a little bit more survivable in close combat, which is kind of nice. Now, your Demogryph Knights have been changed from special choices to rare choices. So like I said before, they did kind of nerf them in the sense that they moved them from the army composition, so you can only have one unit now. So if you're one of those kind of guys who only plays in the 2,000 to 2,500 point range, you can only take one unit of Demogryph Knights now, because to take duplicate rare choices, you have to play at least 3,000 points to do that. So that's kind of sad. But, you know, that's what this edition has done. And also, if you notice, it took away their armor piercing rule for their attacks with the Demogryphs. So that part was kind of sad, too, to see that go away. Now, as for the Hellblaster Volley Gun, still in the rare choice, they can still take an additional crew. Same thing with the Hellstrom Rocket Battery, they can still take an additional crew as well. The War Wagon, which we looked at earlier, is actually a pretty modest rare choice. It's about 120 points, so pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool right there. So if you want to add that unit to your army, you can do that. Of course, their steam tanks are still in the rare unit, of course, and because of the army composition rule changes, if you want to take duplicate steam tanks, like you want to take 2 steam tanks in your army, you have to play at least 3,000 points. Personally, I don't like that rule, just because I feel so long as you're within the percentages, you can take whatever you want to, but that's just me, because that's the way I roll. So there's that situation there. Of course, our Arcane Battle Altars, they're still 110 points for our Luminarch Hish or the Celestial Arcanum, and they actually give you the point upgrades for those as well. So that pretty much makes up the army lists for the Empire book for 9th edition Warhammer Fantasy. So there you have it, folks. This is my review for the 9th edition rules for the Empire Army book. Now, there's some things, of course, that I like and dislike about this product, but overall, though, I think this is an excellent resource to use for your games of Warhammer 9th edition Fantasy Battle, especially if you plan on using the 9th edition rules in your games of Warhammer Fantasy. This is a very valuable resource, and the work that Mathias Eliasson did on this product is absolutely fantastic. Like I said before, if you didn't know any better, you could have swore this is actually an official document. In fact, in my opinion, Games Workshop could actually take a page out of Mathias Eliasson's book that he's doing for his army books. It just kind of like shows you like how important it is to actually make all your rules ahead of time, so that way you can just release them all at once, so that way your players aren't scrambling around waiting for different editions of books to come out. In fact, just get them all done at once and release them in one go, and you're ready to go. So this is an excellent product, and the best part about it is that the book is absolutely free to download for the Warhammer Armies project. So if you feel like playing some Warhammer 9th edition, go down that website and download them. So that being said, that's going to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.